And with that, we'll go into the meeting. If I take apologies there, please, and I'll go around the group leaders. So, Barry McElduff, Councillor McElduff.
Okay, no apologies. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. And Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Bert Wilson, he's at some other meeting, but he should be in about 7:30. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Councillor Garrity.
Thank you, Chair. Two just to hop on, but apologies from Councillor Garvin McPhillips tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mary. And Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. No apologies this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Earl. And I have an apology from Councillor Stephen Donnelly, who had a bereavement. I believe his aunt was buried today, so we extend our sympathies to Stephen and his family at this time. Have we any other apologies, members? No? Okay, so with that, we'll move into the agenda. So item 2, to sign the minutes and confidential minutes, has been done already. And item 3 is to take any declarations of interest. I don't see any indications there, so we'll move on. So item 5 is the Chief Executive Director reports. And if I just invite Allison to take us through 5.1, which is to consider the report on the update of governance review, and that's paper A. So,
thank you. Oh, sorry, Chair. Councillor Curry, maybe, Chair. Sorry.
Apologies, I was a bit slow getting my hand up there. Chair, just declarations of interest 6.2, and it's just specifically on item 2.1.2, just McCaffrey's Quarry, and 7.2, just that's the correspondence from Royal Mail.
Okay, Siobhan. Okay, apologies, Alison, go ahead there.
Okay, no, thank you, Chair. Chair, this is just a brief update on the governance review, excuse me, and in particular the workshop that was held recently with NILGA. Members will recall that there was discussion with NILGA regarding the preparation of a change plan, and in essence it's now to seek members' views as to how you wish to proceed, whether that is something we do by way of peer review with NILGA support or external support from other areas, Chair. And it's really just now to get the Council to determine how it wishes to proceed with the next stage of the governance review to allow us to prepare the change plan.
Okay, thank you, Alison. I'll just invite comments from the chamber then. Councillor Warrington.
Sorry, I've not been muted off. Yes, well, certainly our party would be very much in favour of going down the road of a peer review for the situation, and we, at the end of the day, we've nothing to hide, and I think that will give it's good to have somebody from the outside looking in, so that's our recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Victor. Councillor Swift.
Yeah, Garamagat Kahirla, and has Victor proposed what's in the governance? Oh, aye, he's just given a view already, right? Okay, because I'm happy to proceed also with the suggestion of a peer review and challenge. And I note from the report that Alison already sent out earlier on today about our current workload and capacity placed upon us, that we have to take a look at some of these suitable prioritizations of scoring tools, etc., ensuring that we optimize our time here on WebEx, etc., regarding dealing with the formalities of meetings and all the corporate responsibilities that we have. So, and I don't think that will negate the other issues of which we deal with and have to act upon, representing effectively our constituents, which is obviously how we were elected in the first place. Just one point on that report, Alison. At the workshop, I actually don't recall where it is stated that the majority of members had views reducing the size of the committees. About really the point was being made that the majority appeared to be in favour of reducing to a comparative level with the other 10 councils. Can I just have a wee bit of clarification on that? Because I know we all had mixed views, but just clarification on whether or not NILGA interpreted that we were talking about reducing the size of committees. If you can just have clarification on that. And like, I'm still obviously open for discussions and all of the same. But yes, I support moving forward with a peer review. Gormagat.
Okay, thank you, Bernice.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just my understanding from the subsequent discussions with Nilga Councillor was that they recognised there were mixed views, and one of the things that they've referenced in their I suppose written report for members was the need to ensure appropriate representation and the democratic processes of the council to be fulfilled as well. So I think they recognised there was a mixed view. I do think they were keen to ensure that they would reflect on members' desire to be able to continue to operate effectively, and if there's ways in which we can become more efficient in our business. So I would see that being just a natural part of the consideration now in the next area of work.
Thanks for that, Alison. Thanks for that.
Okay, Bernice. So go ahead, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman, and thanks to Allison. Well, I thought it was a very useful engagement on the 28th with Northern Ireland Local Government Association representatives. And like others, our party grouping will be very supportive of the peer review. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Earl. Councillor McElduff.
Chair Harley, just to ask, what might a corporate peer challenge look like? And also, you know, there might be some feeling among some councillors that we would be further down the track than we are at present. Having said that, I mean, if our sightline is on June 21, you know, and the post-annual general meeting, you know, putting new structures in place, you know, I can understand the pace at which we're moving. But again, it's about prioritisation. It's about reflecting the priorities that we have identified as a council in terms of structures and doing away with redundant structures and time-consuming but not effective structures. It's that type of thing. Amalgamating where appropriate, maybe working groups, maybe establishing a new working group, all of that type of thing. So what might a corporate peer challenge look like? And are we on track? And is it the real objective to implement these structures from the beginning of the third year of this mandate onwards, which would be AGM 1st of June? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Alison, do you want to come back and maybe?
Yes, certainly, Chair. Maybe just to take the last question first. The intention would be to have the change plan complete by May of this year, which would allow consideration at this meeting, policy and resources in May, so that if any changes are required, they would be in place for reporting purposes for the annual meeting on the 1st of June. In terms of what a peer review would look like, a corporate peer review, it would be elected member-led. It would be elected members from some of the other councils, of which Nilga has representatives on all 11. They would be coming, they would be observing our meetings. Obviously, that would be more likely on a virtual basis. They would be commenting on the effectiveness or otherwise of them. Similarly, officers would be in attendance to comment from an officer perspective, Chair. Their observations would be collated, shared with Nilga, shared with the council to see if there's anything from which we could learn. They had also indicated that they would be able to draw on experience from other local government associations, so that would be particularly Scotland, England and Wales, and they do have links with the Republic as well. So the peer review would, the circumstances in which we're working now post-COVID will all be virtual, I would expect. If it was in more normal times, they would be literally coming in and sitting and observing the meetings. In terms of the overall progress, we've reported on a couple of occasions now, and as members, and so some decisions have been taken, including the delegation of powers, full council powers to the relevant committees, and also some decisions around the structuring of agendas. We did have a date prior to Christmas for Nilga, but I think quite reasonably the proximity to Christmas didn't suit the majority. So yes, we are on track for completion for May for all of the work, Chair, to allow any implementation from June onwards.
Does that address your query, Barry?
It does indeed, and it's very reassuring. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McElduff. Councillor Dayton, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alison, for your report. And I have to say, I was very interested in the Nilga meeting on the 28th. I do think that it is that some change is necessary, and it is important to move with the times. And I am all about and in support of managing inefficiencies and maybe restructuring our agendas and getting rid of any processes that are time consuming but not effective in achieving their aims, and maybe amalgamating some of the subgroups or working groups. What I was concerned about, Chair, was the idea, which was mooted, about reducing the size of our committees. We've had debates about this in this mandate, and the Ulster Unionist Party brought forward a motion to reduce the size of committees, and that motion was defeated. I just have some concerns, speaking as an independent councillor, about the potential impact on independent councillors and smaller parties. I feel that there is more to be gained by inclusion rather than exclusion. And every elected councillor holds a mandate, regardless of whether they're independent or belonging to a party. In my view, Chair, if a councillor is a member of a political party, it does allow for some internal delegation of work and responsibilities, but independent councillors carry the full load of representation. Okay. And I'm concerned about that. What I wanted to ask is, you know, what Alison mentioned, Chair, that, you know, we could have a peer review with NILGA support or review by an external body. Could I ask what that, how that might operate? What would be the advantages of that? What would be the external body? And also, if we were to have a corporate peer challenge, could that please also include some independent councillors to get their view on how that works for them? Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Alison, do you want to come in maybe there now?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just my understanding from speaking to NILGA, Councillor Dayton, was that they would simply advise the Council of suitable companies who have undertaken structural reviews around governance in other organisations. So we would do a terms of reference, we would put that out for procurement, and a company would come forward.
Okay, thank you, Alison. If I can just remind members that this item 5.1 is to get a steer to allow officers to go off and obviously get this bit of work rolled out, and the nitty gritty will be done, I suppose, in the forthcoming workshop. So it's just to get a steer. We don't want to go into the entire ins and outs of it now at this stage. So if members just bear that in mind. Councillor Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would very much echo what Councillor Dayton has just after saying there. There is obviously a history to this. It hasn't arisen out of nowhere. It arises from an attempt by some parties here to basically exclude independents and small parties representatives like myself. That's what this is about. And I believe that this whole exercise is about creating an intermediary sort of triangulation, so that there's a pretext enabling people to bring forward a proposal which will basically exclude the minor voices and reinforce the dominance of establishment politics on this council. And whatever I do, I will remain implacably opposed to that, and I will continuously represent those who sent me here as the voice for the voiceless. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Donald, thank you. Okay, Councillor McAleer, Emmett.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd be fully supportive of the comments of Councillor Coffey and Councillor Dayton. I think this is directly leading on from the proposal last summer to members such as myself who, unlike Councillor Coffey, I definitely wouldn't describe us as minor voices. We may be perhaps minor in numbers, but definitely not in terms of quality of debate and discussion relating to council matters and matters relating directly to our constituents. I think it's not a good state of affairs that this is seen as a possible way forward. I think there are serious questions that need to be asked of what is being planned here, what is being proposed here. And I think it is very concerning for members such as myself and the other independents and single member parties who are at a realistic threat of being excluded from different committees. As I said during the meeting with the NILGA reps, that the knock-on effect is going to just entail longer council meetings as opposed to longer committee meetings. I think if the sole concern or the sole motivation on proceeding with this is to have shorter council meetings, I don't think that's a good focus for people to have. People such as myself, people such as Councillor Coffey and Councillor Dayton and others were elected to give a voice to people, not to echo the establishment parties and the failed politics really that we've seen for decades. We are here to give a new voice to that, and I think our exclusion would be definitely to the detriment of the council, to the democratic process as a whole. So I'd just like to place my opposition to it on record, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I think that point's been well made by the previous speakers as well. Just if I make a comment at this stage myself, and I stand to be corrected, and if I'm incorrect, I apologise. But as far as I'm aware, from Mananomo District Council is of the 11 the only council that operates with full member committees. And I look to Salim maybe or someone to correct me if I'm incorrect. But it seems that we're actually unique in our inclusiveness and openness, and allowing all members to take part in committees. That's just my comment on this matter. Councillor Green.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a couple of comments on some of the previous speakers. I think Emmett there talked about, the independents are, bringing something new. As far as I know, there's been independent councillors from the ADOP in all councils, so I don't think he's unique because he's an independent councillor. Having said that, Donald also said that that it was the dominant parties trying to do away with their voice. I'd like to remind Donald the most dominant party, which is Sinn Féin, with 15 councillors, only for them voting along with independents, we would be down to 13 member committees now. So I don't take that the dominant parties tried to exclude them as he perceives. But going on to the point that I actually wanted to make, I asked that there would be a rural inequalities subcommittee formed. I must be 8-9 months ago. At this stage, I have heard no word whatsoever about it. Maybe I missed it in something. I would like to know where that is and why it's taken so long, because at this minute in time, I believe that rural inequalities has never been more prominent. Right through our council and right through our region, it's rural people have been discriminated against grievously, especially through this pandemic, but in general. So I would like to know: are we talking about June after the AGM when this actually gets going? I want to know why it hasn't been got up and running before now. I think it was proposed by myself and seconded. It was passed. So could I have an update on that?
Okay. Alison, do you want to take that now?
Yes, certainly, Chair. Chair, Councillor Green is correct, but it was taken in the context of the overall review, and it was that the subcommittee, two things were linked. One was that we investigate the establishment of formal subcommittees in the context of the governance review. The Health and Social Care Advisory Group was also mentioned as one of those potentials, and the other was the Rural Inequalities Group. There was the request for the review of our overall working groups and that they were included within the overall governance review. So yes, Chair, that work is ongoing, but it is part of the package, and that will be reported in the context of the overall change plan. And yes, my expectation is that nominations to those groups in their entirety would be sought at the annual meeting.
Just to come back on that that's not the way I remember proposing it. And I will go back in the minutes on it, but I don't remember proposing it in that context.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Seamus. Members, I'm getting a sense of where we're going with this in terms of a direction. If I can ask the following speakers just to be as brief as they can when they're making the points. Go ahead, Councillor O'Reilly.
Thanks, Chair. Just to make the point that at this juncture in a new council, I think it is timely and it is sensible to review how we're conducting business and what our operating procedures are. I was the one in the previous council in Fermanagh District Council who was a keen advocate of full member councils. For 20 years, experience has taught that if people are not on or have the option at least to be on all council meetings, standing council meetings, we are in at the full council meetings asking to go back over what was discussed in those committee meetings where ideally the majority of the work takes place. So by having full members, everybody is entitled to and has the opportunity to participate and have their voice heard. So I think that's only but reasonable and fair. And whether 10 other councils do it a different way does not make it that our way is wrong. And I am still a keen advocate for that, notwithstanding some of the previous speakers and the comments. So just to re-emphasize where that all came out of and how that came about, Chair, it is not about political parties or independents. It's about giving everybody an equal opportunity, and it's about giving the opportunity for the full council meeting to be what it should be, the ratification of minutes and the signing off of our decisions. We have made a major step by giving powers to committees to speed up the processing of our business, because quite honestly, Chair, we were all seeing that we were running into a period where the business of the council was taking far too long to get done. So I think I welcome this review. I think it's timely and I look forward to its outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Councillor Baird.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just can't allow Councillor Coffey and Councillor McAleer's allegations, and to a degree Councillor Dayton's, that the purpose in my party's proposal to reduce the committees was specifically to exclude anyone. It was there to improve business, to be more professional, more effective and efficient. Now, you're quite right, Chair, we are the only council that has full member committees. Normal business practice, or whatever way you go, whether it's political, bureaucratic, or any other system of working, has a board or a full committee, and the subcommittees are reduced numbers of that. I would hazard a guess, I haven't done a checkup, but I would hazard a guess that in the other 10 councils, they all have independence there and there doesn't seem to be a problem. Now, Councillor McAleer tells us how effective and efficient he is, and to agree others. I would just remind people of the old adage that self-praise is no praise. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alec. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Keenan. Eamon.
Thank you, Chair. I fully agree with Councillor McAleer, Coffey and Dayton, but in the comments. And also what you said yourself, that we are unique in the fact that we have full membership in our committees. But we are also unique in the fact that we have so many independents in a rural council, and which I believe gives richness and a wide range of spectrum of political views that I believe should not be stifled in order to speed up meetings, if that is the alleged reason. All political views should be heard as democratically voted for by the electorate.
Okay, thanks, Eamon. Councillor Clark, Sean.
Yeah, Chair, I welcome this review, and I think it's a good thing that at least we look at the review. But I think it's a wee bit ironic that some of the councillors are shouting about this didn't take up their place in other committees that they could have, So there's a wee bit of, double standards there.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Okay, so Chris, are you looking to come in? Councillor McCarthy, I see you're indicating, and then you're not indicating, and now you're indicating again.
The next item, 5.2, sorry.
Okay, I'll let you in, Chris, no problem at all. Okay, so we've got a course of direction, I believe. proposed by Councillor Warrington and I believe seconded by Councillor Benny Swift, if I'm correct,
Yes,
that
Chair.
we go along the lines of a peer review. Is that correct, Alison?
Yes, Chair, that's my understanding as well.
Okay, and are we all agreed, members?
Yep.
No.
Yes. Okay.
No.
Just
Not
if you
agreed
just
on
raise
that.
if you just raise your hand if you're not in agreement, and we'll note your dissension. So if you just put up your hand if you're not in agreement with that recommendation. Councillor Clark, if you just have a look at your hand there and make sure you're indicating correctly. Is there any other indications?
Chair, I'm trying to take it down. So
That's down there, Grant Sean. Okay, so we've got 3 indications of dissent from that action. So Councillor Coffey, Councillor McAleer, and Councillor Keane, I believe. Is that okay? Okay, so moving on then, so to 5.2, it is to consider the draft responses to the consultation on the Council's Climate Change and Sustainable Development Strategy, Paper B. It is quite a hefty document, and I'm sure you've all had opportunity to read it. Margaret is on hand for any questions or if you want anything clarified. So with that, I'll go into the chamber. So Councillor McCarthy, you were indicating there previously, so go ahead, Chris.
Gurmagat, Kyerly, well, of course, I would be very glad as chair of the Climate Change Resilience Group to welcome and propose the adoption of this draft strategy. And, you know, of course, I want to send a heartfelt thank you to Margaret, Charlotte and Melissa for all of the work that they have done in getting this through in a timely fashion. You know, such hard work has went in, and I think that it just shows the urgency of the issue at hand, and of course the dedication and commitment of our council staff. I also want to thank the members of the Climate Change Resilience Group and my fellow council colleagues who have all taken an active and lively part in the group and who have brought forward lots of proposals and have been active at every stage of this. So I want to extend my thank you to them also, and also to the public, everyone who has answered in the public consultation, and to the schools that took part in our schools challenges. I want to congratulate the winning school. I know that some of the councillors from OMA will also wish to do that as well. So thank you all round for all the work and energy and time that has went into this. So in addition to proposing this strategy for adoption, I am cognizant that the climate action and sustainable development agenda is an ever-increasing area of responsibility, which is a good thing. However, and whilst I appreciate this verges on being a staffing matter, I'm wondering whether our council has the resources, enough resources to tackle this hugely important work. This strategy will be embedded into the delivery of our services, and I'm wondering if perhaps staff within the organisation could be redeployed from areas that have been affected by the current COVID pandemic to support this work in the short to medium term. I appreciate this may be a question for Celine or Alison if they want to come back in at the end to address. But a climate emergency has been declared, not only in Ireland, but around the world. And we all have a responsibility to play our part in halting, if not reversing, climate change. By introducing this strategy, we have shown that climate action and sustainable development are areas which we take seriously as a council body. And I think that it is reasonable for some sourcing and support to come from central government. I propose we write to the relevant department, which would be DERA, and ask how they propose to support councils in delivery of these obligations, and ask whether there would be scope for a collaborative working or a pilot project that we can do together. I think there is a need for a coordinated and joined up approach. So I'm happy to propose the 2 recommendations and put that proposal to the council. Gurmagat.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Alison, I'll invite you maybe at the end, just once we cover the other councillors, if that's
fine.
okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McAleer, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think again, yeah, I'd like to echo Chris's support for or appreciation for the officers and the team involved in drawing this up. I think as part of the Climate Change Resilience Group, with which Chris would have chaired, you know, we have seen good advances, even from the original document to what is being presented to us tonight, and I think that's a good sign of a work, something that has proceeded in a good manner and a good working order. I think, as Chris said, yeah, absolutely send my heartfelt congratulations to Arvalee and Oma who were the winning school, and also to St Joseph's and Ederney, and indeed all the primary schools who participated in it. There, I would have, I suppose, still a couple of issues with it. I know that there are, again, references to a number of stages through the document to electric cars and electric vehicles, and I suppose there's still reservations in relation to both the security of lithium batteries, their durability or fireproofness, and obviously the mining of that as a material. I think point number 14 on page 11 is very commendable on that idea of promoting sustainable tourism. There's a lot of the document that I would agree with. I just point out on page 16, I think there's just a wee typo there where it actually says or where it refers to polystyrene. This was a response or an addition I'd made at the meeting. It states moving away from polystyrene type food packaging to a more biodegradable alternative. To the best of my knowledge, polystyrene isn't biodegradable, so it would just request that more biodegradable maybe be
that's
removed.
point 28 there, Emmett, yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
There is one other one in relation to point number 8 of the sustainable environment, which is on page 31. And it, again, it's an addition that we have in relation to the preservation of the Black Bog Ramsar site, but it says the council will make very effort, where that should probably read every effort. But I think by and large, it's a good document. It's something to definitely a good starting point, something to work on. There's one question or one query just I have, and it relates to the Sustainable Council aspect of it. It's page 20 on the document there, and it's referenced just in relation to the just if I double check here, sorry that I'm on the right one. Sorry, page 24, it's point number 18, point number 14, where there's a submission just saying that questioning really that we're supporting a move to reduce reliance on single-use plastics, and the response says that this will be determined by the plastic packaging tax and future waste in NI, and then in brackets DERA. To the best of my knowledge, I suppose we were, as a council, moving towards reducing reliance on single-use plastics, so we would maybe just like clarification on that point, but I suppose pending that, I'm happy enough to second the recommendation, second the report, Chair.
Grant, thank you, Emmett, and we get that clarification at the end there for you, all right. Councillor Curry, go ahead.
It's a bit frustrating listening there because Councillor McAleer's on the working group, and these were all issues we were raising on the working group just as recently as last week, so we could have done that already. But thanks, Chair. First of all, yeah, I'd like to warmly welcome this strategy. I don't think it was seconded there, and if
I think it was by Emmett, all right.
Okay. It's been a decisive action from our council following the proclamation of a climate emergency, and the strategy now will support the council and our residents to play a part in reducing our impact on the environment and meeting the challenge of climate change by taking action, and it'll underpin everything we do. So I'd also like to echo the thanks to everybody who's been involved, particularly our hard-working staff, but I think ourselves and the community all have a great sense of ownership over this now. So just to say that, to put that on record. Chair, members will remember that my party colleague Chris McCaffrey brought forward a motion, and it was seconded by Anthony Feely back in June 2019, which our council passed, that called on Nilgosk to divest from fossil fuels, tobacco and arms. Indeed, we were talking about it earlier today. And members will also remember that they did meet with us soon after and said that while they could divest, it would only be done if it was profitable. So, Chair, I represent our council on the Nuclear Free Local Authorities Steering Group, and they're calling on all member councils to bring forward motions seeking divestment from fossil fuels and nuclear arms. So, of course, I've advised them that we've already done this. However, just in light of us bringing forward this strategy, And considering all the work that we've been doing in the meantime, I think it's timely to seek an update from Nilgosk on what they've done to work towards these aims. Surely there can't be any sustainable profit to be achieved from investment in fossil fuels. It'd also be interesting, Chair, to know if other councils are making similar calls. So I think it'd be a good time to write to them in this regard, including our original motion and seeking their support with this call. So I'd like to propose those two actions, please, Chair. And Chair, just on a related point, and I know I did contact you on this for any other business, but it is relevant here, and it might take me slightly over my 3 minutes, but I think it'll save time in the long run if you
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, it's relevant to hear, so go ahead. Yeah.
Gormagat. Members might be aware that there was a major, there's a major coal mine in Cumbria was given the green light last week by the British government. Although Cumbria County Council called it back into planning committee yesterday, I think they were facing legal challenge. The consideration of such a coal mine at a time when we should be moving away from fossil fuel extraction in order to meet net zero emissions targets really beggars belief, and it makes a laughing stock of the British government ahead of the COP26 climate change conference due to take place in Glasgow later this year. So what's this got to do with us? Well, first of all, burning fossil fuels and adding carbon to our atmosphere affects us all. Secondly, the plans for this mine involve excavation beneath the Irish Sea in an area of known subsidence. This increases the risk of radioactive sediments that are present there due to decades of toxic waste being dumped by nearby Sellafield, being resuspended, which of course poses obvious risks to the marine ecosystem. So this being a coal mine in development's bad enough, but the potential nuclear waste issue makes it much worse. Members might also be interested to know that the chief executive of the coal mining company is also a member of the Committee on Radioactive Waste Management. So is there any coincidence between this coal mine development and the decision by 2 district councils in Cumbria to consider plans for an underground radioactive repository? Is it any coincidence that such a future repository would greatly benefit from a coal mine being excavated now? And is it any coincidence that the British government white paper is touting nuclear energy generation as clean and green way to meet net zero targets, but it's totally ignoring the huge issue with nuclear waste?
Okay.
So just, Chair, I am coming to the point. Just might also interest members to know that Copeland Council, when they were looking at putting a waste repository, and they are considering it, they said they wouldn't be in favour of it going under the English Lake District, but they seem to have no qualms whatsoever with it going under the Irish Sea. So again, just to bring it back to the point, the NFLA is asking all member councils, and we are a member council, to object to the proposals. They are currently looking at issues around development, whether they can be raised through SBU or our House Convention. So just to bring it to a conclusion, Chair, I propose that we write to the British government. I believe DEFRA is the right department, and to Cumbria County Council, pointing out our concerns in terms of development of fossil fuels and potential resuspension of radioactive material, and to ask what specific investigations have been carried out to look at the impact on human health, agriculture and the environment, to ask what has been the nature of the transboundary or wider consultation, particularly in terms of drilling in the Irish Sea, and what plans they have to consult with the authorities on the island of Ireland. Gormagat, Chair, thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Siobhan. And that's what I'd like to see, where AOB items are obviously brought into the correct part of the meeting, and it can be dealt with there. So thanks for that. And we have your comments noted there for your proposals. Councillor Michael Duff, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to second Councillor Curry's proposal. In relation to the report 5.2, can I say that I too would like to congratulate Arvely School Oma and the other schools who participated in a competition to name our strategy. Brilliant that Arvilley School won it. And I'm sure Councillor Curry would like a recount because St Joseph's Ederney came next, you know, but I'm content with the result there, that Arvilley School came out on top. But Margaret has serviced the committee, her and her colleagues have serviced the committee very well, chaired very well by Councillor McCaffrey. But Councillor McCaffrey may have done this in his role, but Chair, I would ask that the Council Chair, Diana Armstrong, consider writing a letter of congratulations to Arvilley School Oma and the other 4 schools for their active citizenship and participating in the naming of the strategy competition. And as you know, Arvilley School have won out with Restore, Revive, Thrive our environment. So I think it would be appropriate that the chair of our council would write to each of the participating schools and thank them for their participation, congratulate them. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll invite Council Chair in here, Councillor Armstrong, just on that point.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you also to Councillor McElduff for proposing that. Very happy to do it. I think, you know, our children are the guardians of the future of the environment, so it's wonderful to see them participating and their interest, their imagination, and I'll be very happy to congratulate all who entered and the winners especially. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diana. Councillor Gannon, Adam.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I have to thank Margaret and all the other staff involved, and I have to also thank members of the group too. You know, when I proposed the creation of this climate change resilience group, it was meant to be all party and meant to be very collaborative, and I'm really thrilled that it has been. It's been really productive. Everyone has worked really well together, and it's brilliant to have been a part of. I do think this document will help us in tackling the climate crisis in our district, and I think it'll inform our decisions and strategy going forward, or at least help in some part and steer us in a more environmentally friendly direction. And of course, congratulate the schools for taking part, including our winners, Arvilley. There was one thing that Chris mentioned there, and he mentioned about a project and seeking funding for it. I think it's a very interesting, worthwhile idea. But he hasn't actually said what sort of project he wants to work on. Maybe I fully support trying to get funding for some sort of pilot project or something like that. Maybe that's something if Councillor McCaffrey would be interested in. Maybe the Climate Change Resilience Group can work on some ideas for projects and bring them back and then seek funding. If he maybe agrees with that sort of approach, it's just because we haven't got a project yet, and you're kind of shooting in the dark until you've got an idea of where you're going. But it's just an idea, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCaffrey, briefly, I'll just let you respond to that very briefly, please.
I thank Councillor Gannon for his interjection there. No, what I did propose was we were seeking if there would be scope for a collaborative working project or a pilot project, as I said, that council and the department could do together. What I'm basically trying to get at, and I appreciate that, like what I was saying, that because climate change is becoming a bigger remit all the time, and obviously we know how important it is. I'm concerned that the sort of staffing pressures it may put on the council, and I think there is a role under the Department of Environment, under DERA, for a sort of a coordinated and joined up approach on how they will actually assist local government in meeting these obligations. So that's really what the crux of my proposal was. So
okay.
I'd be happy to keep the same, just as it was. Thank you.
Councillor Coffey, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is a comprehensive document, and I think it does recognise that we're in a global climate crisis, which are both positive things. I do wonder really how it will translate into the sort of action that we need to see to avert a climate catastrophe, which would necessarily, as far as I'm concerned, involve taking on the interest of capitalism per se. But in any case, one of the things clear to me was that we are a district where there is currently applications in for exploration on petrochemicals, in particular fracking, and these are obviously associated with runaway climate change because of the methane that's associated is hundreds of times more forcing than carbon dioxide in terms of greenhouse emissions. And I think that it should be mentioned here that we as a council cannot be genuinely much serious about trying to stop climate change if we don't have a very clear in our climate change and resilience policy opposition to this toxic industry. So we need to see if I could that included in here as a specific. Obviously we have a policy. I don't think it goes far enough, but certainly if that was referenced in it, I think it would be stronger. It would send out a strong signal. And in general, I just want to say I was supportive of the comments from Councillor Curry. I thought they were well made. There are genuine concerns around the behaviour of the Tory government at the moment, and in many regards, and that's just one of them, but I'm happy to support that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dublin. Councillor Feely, Anthony.
Thank you, Keirley, and like others, I want to congratulate that school and winning the prize, and other schools that took part also, and very comprehensive report here. Well done to Margaret and staff for doing it. There's a lot of detail and a lot of reading on it. But I was kind of on the appendix on page 31, then page 32, point 9. There's kind of about the play park strategy, and there's a couple of great points in there about well, there's a couple of good lines there. I just took out that there's a need to have access to park and open spaces via safe green walking and cycling routes, you know. So it just got me thinking, like, we could kind of cooperate it into greenways. Like, take for instance, if you had a green close to a park, you know, that we could just kind of marry the two into each other, like for safety for people's walking and stuff. And the way the things going now, there's a lot of people out walking with the COVID and everything, and cycling. So I was just going to make a wee proposal that we can do a feasibility study into that, you know, that we could consider this in our play park strategy, if it would be possible. Stephen, if you get my meaning.
Yeah, I've got you, Shirley, Anthony. Thank you. Councillor Feely, yeah, thanks. Okay.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, Councillor O'Reilly, go ahead, Thomas.
Thanks, Chair. And I want to, first of all, just welcome the tremendous amount of work that has gone into producing this strategy. I think as a council, we needed a strategy to bring together all of our collective thoughts on how to help protect our environment and to move forward here. I think as a council and as two counties, we are always been seen as very green, friendly places to come, particularly in the spectrum of tourism. And I think that this strategy can only help that whole image of our two counties, and particularly this council area. And we really have had a lot of good work pulling together all of the points right from the start of the strategy through to the end. The task and finish group for tourism that we had during the week, we were talking about how can we improve our environmental tourism and attract more people here, and this is a good start. But the hard work really begins now, Chair. We have a strategy which allows the participation of our citizens in a constructive way to be able to support this council achieve the collective aims that we have set out here. So while I welcome the strategy and the work that has gone heretofore to produce it, the real hard work begins now to actually be able to find the funding and the resource and the enthusiasm to not alone implement what we see in the strategy to date, but to see where we can improve and where we can go forward and further in our aims and objectives. So a good start. And I'm happy to second the proposal there around the greenways and the play park strategy. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor O'Reilly. Councillor Dayton, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I too would like to thank Margaret and her team and congratulate them on collating all the consultation responses and producing this draft strategy. I think the name of the strategy, which was proposed by Arvely School in Omagh, Restore, Revive, Thrive Our Environment, is just excellent. and I too would like to offer my congratulations to Arvalee School and indeed to the other schools for their interest and contribution to this. I just want to make a small comment just under the theme of sustainable community. Page 1629 referenced the lack of recycling facilities in schools, and I think I have raised this on a number of occasions. The recycling facilities in recycling opportunities in health facilities, and I think that is an area that really does need work done too. So I'm not sure if we have communicated with our health trusts and other facilities in relation to that, but if we haven't, then I suggest we do that. I do want to commend the Climate Change Resilience Group. I think they have done excellent work, and I think that work needs to continue. And as Councillor O'Reilly says, the work is really only starting. Chair, I would like to think that, you know, each person can make a contribution to climate change resilience by making personal changes in their lives. You know, the amount of energy we consume, the amount of water we use, dietary changes, including a reduction in our consumption of dairy and beef. And I'd like to see that highlighted in the document as well, Chair. Thank you. And I do want to support councillors in their proposals, particularly in relation to the coal mining. I think it's an absolutely outrageous and backward step. And I think Councillor Curry is quite right to bring it to us this evening. And I support her proposal entirely, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Josephine. Councillor Keenan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's a very good document. And good to see it mentions the fracking, the mining, and the wind turbines. But as Donald has said, I'd also like to see the strengthening of our position on these heavy pollutants with regards to mining and the fracking. The environment. I also noticed page 40 there. It says that there's a scope of investigation on restoring the rail connections from Monaghan District Council with the rest of Ireland to be undertaken. It's similar to the proposal I made last month, and it's something I hope does happen because I believe it could reduce our carbon footprint massively, locally. I think it's clear that globally and locally we must all have the environment at the forefront of our minds at all times. And it's good to see us talking. Thanks.
Thank you, Eamon. And Councillor Donnelly, Anne-Marie.
Thank you, Chair. I was just coming in to second my colleague Anthony Feely's proposal there. I thought maybe it hadn't been seconded.
That's just the one that's outstanding. Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Okay, so a number of proposals, and I believe they've all been seconded. Alison, you can keep me right on that. And then also there's a number of queries raised. Just, Alison, if you're able to address them at this stage. If there's any further queries after that, if I can just suggest that you contact the officers after the meeting. Go ahead, Alison.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, just maybe to pick up on a couple of points, specifically on the resourcing that was referenced, really just to say that we do recognise this as a major priority for the Council, and it's something that we would be intending to embed within our own service delivery. So we'll obviously keep an active review on the resources that we need to do that. But the intention, and I think it's explicit in the document, for this to work, the Council as a whole corporately, and that's with all of our departments, has to embed it successfully and deliver upon it. The other couple of matters, maybe just to say, Chair, a number of the details that members have referenced, I think, will come out now in the action planning process. Really, the purpose of today was to get the strategy through. Certainly, there are a couple of specifics that we can investigate if they appear in this document or in the further detail that follows. And finally, just in terms of the proposals, Chair, the only one that I think may be outstanding was just a seconder for Councillor McCaffrey's second proposal, which was regarding the pilot scheme with DARA for funding. I wasn't sure if that was seconded, but everything else is complete.
Okay, I think Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly was second. I think Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly was seconding both them. Anne-Marie, am I right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, happy days. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're all agreement then, members, with them actions, yeah?
No.
Okay, can we record, is it Councillor Baird?
Yes, if you allow me, Chair, just very quickly. While I have concern about this coal mine, this is another example of proposals being foisted on us at short notice with only one view expressed. I would like to know more. I'll say in principle I don't have a problem, but the actual voting for this, when we've only heard one side, in many ways it's an example of that's been given that has been given in the Nilga paper of our time wasting writing letters. So certainly I am abstaining on that in the context of having enough information. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alec. Okay. Moving on to item 5.3 then, members. It's another draft response to a consultation, this time on reform rehabilitation periods in Northern Ireland. That's paper C. If you have any queries, mark it online, and if not, I'll take a proposer and seconder for the recommendation on that. Councillor Swift. Sorry, Councillor Thornton's in first there. Go ahead, Howard.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've read through this document, and a very good document, and it throws up the anomaly between the Scottish, English and Welsh, and I think it's well put together, and I would propose its acceptance. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Coffey.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. I like Councillor Thornton. I think some of the things in here are quite shocking, really. It just shows you how backward in many regards our sentencing structures are. The fact that England and Wales have much more, in my view, progressive policies on time being served, and that people can make turn their lives around. We all understand the nature of crime and that people have to face the consequences for that, but it's also vitally important that they can have an opportunity to turn their lives around. And if our legal system is as bad as it seems, we are in dire need of immediate action. So I'm very supportive of this paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald. Glenarray, Collier, McCaffrey.
Well, just at this juncture, I just kind of wish to maybe depart from what it's in the report, but I just, growing up, I worked with a former prison guard in prisons, and it always give me great insight into their perspective, and he was a big believer in rehabilitation and the importance of how a society treats prisoners, and whether or not, we basically said that the success of society depends on how much we invest in prisoners and rehabilitation of people, because people obviously can go all sorts of directions in life, and so it's just really just departing from the report, but it's just it's a broader topic which I'm interested in.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, Councillor McClary, go ahead.
Thank you. Obviously, it's a very interesting topic. There's a phenomenon. I'm not quite sure what I think his name's Ian Atchison. I'm not sure, he was whether a couple of years ahead of me at school or a couple of years behind. He's a leading. He worked in the prison service and he writes a lot of papers. I wonder, would we consider having him do a presentation to us on the prison reforms that would give us more information? I could maybe find out more details if somebody was in mind to second that.
Okay.
Get his full name. He is. I'm not quite sure of his full title. I know he's very highly qualified when it comes to prison reforms, and he does write a lot of papers for different bodies, including the government, on prison reform and prisoner rehabilitation.
All right, John. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, a very interesting document. Happy enough with it, but I'll second Councillor McClary's proposal that we invite Ian Atchison to address the council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And are we all agreed, members?
Okay, here, look, I'm not so sure. I'd like to know a bit more about that chap, because
I have my hand up too.
Oh, sorry. Just before it went on too quickly, there are serious issues regarding this imprisonment in this country, and not least it's been front page and big national news since the weekend on arrests and imprisonment and the detainment and the continuing stop and search and indeed ongoing internment. So I haven't heard tell of that chap. I don't have knowledge. And again, it's a bit like what was said last night and in our governance review, having names and I suppose, people's professions bounced on us with little or further knowledge. I'm not in support of that.
Okay, Bernie. Okay, well, I do sense dissent to that. So if I can just ask anyone with who wishes to dissent or to object to that proposal, if they just raise their hands there, if that's okay, members.
Well, I had my hand up.
I don't see it, Seamus. I don't see it appearing on my screen here now. Bear with me just for a look here.
Through the chair, Councillor Stephen, would it be mindful if some further information was sought about this individual, so then the members could make a decision on whether they want a presentation or not? Because like others, I'm not sure who we're talking about, but have no objection to having a presentation from anyone coming in, whether sometimes I agree with them or not. I think, but it's just a lack of knowledge, I think, is what's turning people off of knowing who it is. And I think just if more information was sought, if Councillor McCloughy was content with that, and then the members could make the decision, just not to make this divisive. That would be my only concern. Thanks, Chair. Okay, fair enough point. Mary, Councillor McCloughy, do you want to just maybe just advise the members as to the credentials of this gentleman and the purposes of his presentation, or the purposes of bringing them in? So, sorry, Chair, you might have misunderstood me. It wasn't from Councillor McCloughy, because like other members have indicated tonight, that's their impression of someone. Maybe if we as officers could get a profile back of who this is, and then we make the decision. It's not that I doubt Councillor McCloughy, but obviously how I would perceive someone would be different, how maybe you would perceive, or one thing or another. So just an independent who this person is, and say that it would be like a presentation, would be better informed about what we're talking about. It is certainly an interesting topic, and I think most members will be interested in it, but it's just it's to give my side of okay. One person, but it's just maybe misconstrued, you know. No problem. Okay, so maybe to bring this forward, if I can maybe ask Councillor McCloughy, if he's happy enough, maybe Councillor McCloughy, that we put this on the agenda for P&R with a bit of a background next month, with a bit of a background of this fella, and we can decide then whether to have him in, if that's okay, John. That'll bring.
Stevie, could I have
and that's what I propose to do. Maybe that we do put this.
Say, all I know is this fella. This is what he does. I can't vouch for his credentials or anything. I've just saw bits that he's written in newspapers and stuff to do with prison reform, and I know he's from Fermanagh, and that's all I know about the man. So I apologise. It's just that he's local, and I know that he is some sort of expert in prison reform. That's all I can tell you about him. So
could
I'm quite happy
to get in? I think it was in.
And see people would be great.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Green.
Yeah, well, Councillor Baird talked there a while ago about things being hoisted onto us. I think that's a complete example there, where we didn't even know the name of this person, the person that was suggesting bringing him in. So to quote Councillor Baird, it's been hoisted on us. It shouldn't be. It's a waste of time. And unless there was better information coming that we don't even know this person's name, it shouldn't be put on. And long have a waste of time now on that.
No, absolutely. Well, to bring this forward, I'm going to propose, maybe John asked that this is put on the agenda for P&R for March, with a brief update from members as to the background, and maybe if you can work with the officers in the meantime, John, that'll maybe bring that to a conclusion, if that's okay. So with that, members, we move on.
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Okay, so item 6, members, is to go in. Where's my agenda? Item 6 is the Corporate Services and Governance Directive Reports. Celine will take us through the next 4 items. So Celine, paper D on financial matters.
Chair, members, just checking you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so the first paper is our financial update, and just a couple of items that I want to dwell on there. We have got our management accounts for 9 months up to the 31st of December. There is a surplus position reported there. That is a result largely of additional funding that the council has received in relation to the furlough scheme of 779,000, and also then exceptional funding, government funding of just over £2 million. So those are very significant, I suppose, exceptional items there in that financial report. But as members are aware from the work that is ongoing in connection with the estimates, that surplus will be set aside this year to help to defray costs and loss of income that will impact on the rates in the next year and beyond. So just to highlight that. The second item is a report on capital and treasury potential indicators, which we're required to produce. And the third item does also then refer to the estimates, and just to update you there, we had our third meeting on the 20th of January and a fourth meeting earlier today, and that is working through some of the detailed analysis, which will then be reported in full to the special council meeting, which is scheduled to take place on Thursday, the 18th of February 2021 at 7 p.m. And just to clarify that is a public meeting, as it is every year, and this year it will be slightly different in that it'll be virtual like all of our meetings, but the public are welcome to attend through our YouTube channel and tune in that way. So the recommendations are that the Council approves the management accounts for the period to the 31st of December 2020, notes the prudential and treasury indicators for the similar period, and notes the update in relation to the estimates process for 21-22.
Okay, thank you, Celine. A couple of hands up maybe from before. Councillor Swift, you looking in? Okay, and thank you, Seamus. Councillor Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just looking at these figures there. They're kind of not what you really expect when it comes to in the current climate we find ourselves in. If we look to the Appendix 1 document, as is, Celine's just stated there correctly, am I correct that at the moment we're looking at at least a £3.7 million surplus being run in the current year? And that's actually almost 1.5 million more than we actually had initially anticipated. And the second point I just wanted to clarify is in Appendix 2. I also note that we have £20 million or more than 21 million at this stage in various places. But I'm wondering, there's a table there where it says, oh God, I should have marked it, our net capital holdings. And I think it's 13.5, and it actually went up to 15 million. So am I to take it that our capital reserves are now topping 15 million after having such a positive year in terms of the surpluses? Thank you, Chair.
Okay,
through the Chair. So in relation to the management accounts, I think it's important to recognise the profile of the expenditure over the course of the year. We're looking at 9-month period, and the profile would be that our income would exceed our expenditure in that period of time. A lot of that is because the DFC payments general grant is received up front or is received earlier in the year in cash terms. So we do expect that we would be in a surplus position at this point in the year, and then that is worked through over the course of the year. And in particular, like many other organisations, in Q4 or coming up to the year end, the expenditure does go out, and there's also adjustments to be made for some non-cash items such as depreciation, etc. as well, which are all worked through at the end of the year. So I think the key figure here is the variance figure, which is 1.4 million, which is, yes, we are ahead. It's made up of many different factors. First of all, we have other expenditure of over 800,000 on COVID-related costs. There are some savings and efficiencies that have been made in different service areas, partly because some projects haven't been taken forward, such as events and other initiatives that it hasn't been possible to deliver over the course of this year. We've had reduction in overheads, such as printing, stationery, travel, right across the piece. So that's another factor. There have been some appointments that have been delayed and have where we have looked at trying to redeploy staff, and then there has been a reduction in income in some areas, and then we have the large items of additional income that has come in. So yes, it's a positive position. It's also a very fluid position, and it is changing. And as members are aware, we have actively pursued every avenue to look at getting additional funding in this year to mitigate against the financial impacts of COVID. And I have already set out then the fact that that is a deliberate strategy that we hope to then try and manage our position over really a 2 to 3 year period. In relation to the capital and treasury indicators, I'm sorry, could you give me the reference there again, just to refer to the specific item?
Yeah, Chair, it's I think it's page 4, top of page 4, table 3, Treasury Management Summary. It suggests that with our total investments of 19 point, well, actually it's more than 20.84 at this stage, and even allowing for the borrowing of 5.6, we're still net investments up 15.19. I'm just wondering whether that shows we've actually, our balance book has basically gone up by 2 million over the last year, if I can check that. Thank you. And that's in addition, I take it, to the current management accounts, yeah?
No, it's not an addition. This would include, this is the amount of money that we have in the bank. So this is our cash position. Included again in that cash position is other reserves that are earmarked for different purposes. So that could be in some instances where we have again received grant money for in particular capital programs, and those are then distributed out to groups and organisations whenever they are in a position to they've developed their application and the funding is in place. It does also relate to where we would have set aside, for example, monies on for our next election, which is one that we have, and also some elements of landfill aftercare costs. So that is purely a cash movement, and it does broadly correlate to the management accounts figures, because we have got that extra exceptional funding in from the department this year. We're very grateful for it, and it is important that we do have that to be able to manage just the extent of losses and impact on our services. So yes, it does broadly reflect the exceptional funding that we have received over the period of time, and is related more to the surplus position. It's not actually our reserves, which are slightly different. It's our cash position.
Okay, thank you, Celine. Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and I just want to thank Celine for that detailed review of the management accounts and information there, and thank you for the estimates meeting this afternoon, which is very useful. Happy to propose the recommendations.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And Councillor Irvine, Robert.
Thanks, Anne-Marie got in front of me. I'm happy to second her proposal and part of the recommendations of the report. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Celine, for this report. It looks like there was obviously some great work done by our council to actually make a profit of 3.7 million surplus this year. A year which was really exceptional with the pandemic and everything that entailed. And it does give me great confidence that going forward as we come out of the pandemic, that there is hope, that all's not lost financially. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Councillor O'Reilly. Thomas, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just tease out with Celine a little bit? It was a question I was going to ask earlier on. Out of the 20.843 million that is in the bank, as you say, we have interest rates ranging from 0.03% to 0.86%. Can you give me a little bit more idea while you say that some of that 20.84 is reserves earmarked for elections and for other things? How much of it is actually unearmarked and actually within institutions just deriving an interest? And how much of it, if any, is loaned out to other councils, and do we and have we got loans out to other councils?
Okay, through the chair. So when we were approving our financial position for last year, the general reserve figure was agreed at, I think, an amount of 3.7 million, and that's the amount that's not allocated as such. The general reserve is really the money that keeps the council financially stable. And I appreciate that that is an important issue, because every organisation and the challenging financial circumstances that we have at the moment does need to look at that. I think whenever we talked about it, sorry, it was 3.65 million, which was basically for, you know, represented almost each week of the year was the figure. So that is the amount that is unallocated. And then your second question was in connection with the interest rates. So you can see there, and it's provided on the report, that we have two sums lent out to two other Northern Ireland councils, and that is 4.5 million to Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon Borough Council, and 1.5 to Antrim and Newton Abbey Borough Council. Those are very short-term arrangements. They're reviewed every 6 months, I think. I just need to check that, but every 6 months, and they're repayable at that point. Again, they're a cash flow position, so they have, rather than they've needed cash flow to, I think, in both cases, to support capital projects before they draw down loans, and we have facilitated that. We've sought professional advice, and that has all been set up formally and legally. And you can see that the rates that we have negotiated there are favourable compared to the rates that are available now for deposit in the banks at the moment, which are not particularly favourable. So that money is repayable on demand should we need it for anything. But we are working towards a number of capital projects and would be slightly behind in our delivery of those, not just because of COVID, but due to other reasons as well. So that is why that money is available to us. And if all our debts came to fruition and at the one time, we certainly would have to draw on that as well to fund it. But to go back to, I suppose, the liquidity question and the stability of the council, the general reserve is is agreed at just under 3.7 million, and we will come to review that as part of the estimates process as well this year.
Okay, Celine, thank you. Tom, was that okay, Councillor Riley?
Yes, Chair. I'm delighted to understand that if we need to use 1.5 million. For instance, if we needed to subsidise our rates this year, we could in fact call that 1.5 million loan that we have out to another council back in. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McAleer.
Thank you, Chair. No, funny, Councillor O'Reilly, I think, has covered quite a bit of the points that I was going to follow up on there. Again, this idea that financially this council does seem to have been very prudent point, and as has been stated, the fact that the council's investment of 20.843 million is sitting there with, I think Celine said, about 5 million outstanding on payments, leaves us definitely in a very healthy position when it comes to calculating the rates for the coming year. So I think that is good news all around. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Emmett. Councillor McClahary, I believe, might have issues with his hand there. He's indicating there for a while. So go ahead, Councillor McClahary.
Sorry, Chair, my computer's doing weird things. It's not. I'm not trying to put my hand up, but everything seems to be writing up on it.
No problem. Okay.
I'm going to turn it off and turn it on again.
Okay, John. Thanks. Okay, Councillor Curry.
Margaret O'Kearley, and thank you, Celine. And I'm just, it's just a query just around on Appendix 2, Table 1. I hope it's okay just to be but we've got investments just at a number of different banking institutions as well, Celine, and I'm just wondering, I'm wondering ways with so many, and some of them have got very poor interest rates. So I'm kind of wondering why we're with them. And then just cognizant of the presentation we had today around shared community wealth, I'm just wondering, have we explored maybe investing in our local credit unions?
Okay. Well, again, sorry, I thought you were going to ask about why we have borrowings in Table 1 whenever we have monies in the bank, and I suppose the answer to that is that these are historical debts and there would be penalty interest in renewing them early, and we have examined that. We do, on a monthly and quarterly basis, look at all of the investment options that are available to us within the legislation. Around options for investment. Now, I'm not quite sure that the credit unions would offer that type of organisational investment opportunity, but I appreciate your point is probably wider than that in terms of using resources for community wealth building, and yes, there's scope and opportunity there. So I will confirm the position whether we can access and work with the credit unions in that way, but I suspect that they wouldn't be offering us their services at this point in time as an investor, but we can certainly look at that. And if I may, Chair, just to clarify one point, just in relation to Councillor O'Reilly and Councillor McAleer's comments, again, there is a difference between cash and setting the rates for next year. And in particular, if you subsidise the rates in 1 year, then that does have a longer term impact because there's a gap that has to be filled the following year. So be assured, members, that we are looking at all of these matters in detail, and we are mindful of the financial climate, and we will continue our work on the estimates, hopefully to bring them to an acceptable conclusion.
Councillor O'Reilly, very briefly, please.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate it. Just to follow with Celine there, if we, for instance, took the 1.4 and used it to subsidise the rates, there is no payback of that 1.4, is my understanding, because it is separate money that we have already lent out. So there is no having to start off at a 4 or 5% rate increase the following year, because we just write off that 1.4 has been spent. Am I missing something on that, Celine? Maybe I am.
Through the Chair, yes, Councillor O'Reilly, I believe you are, because if you spend 40 million and you have only got income coming in of 38.5 million, and your cost profile for the next year is also 40 million, then you have spent your 1.5 million. You don't have 1.5 left to bridge that gap and fill that hole. So therefore, the following year, you would be looking at a rates increase in the region of 4%, in excess of 4%.
Okay. Celine, thank you, and thank you all members. We have a proposer, Marie Donnelly, and seconded Robert Irvine for recommendations A, B, and C. Are we all agreed? Okay, thank you. Paper E, members, then, is our monthly update in relation to procurement and tenders. And if you've got no queries or questions, I'll invite the proposer and seconder, please, for recommendations A through to E. Councillor Erskine.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to propose.
Thank you, Deborah. And Councillor Garrity.
Second, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Are we all agreed, members? Perfect. Paper F 6.3 on the agenda is an update to our constitution scheme of delegations. Celine, if you want to touch on that, please.
Yes, Chair. So this has been advised, it's additional responsibilities for our environmental health officers, both in connection with the EU exit and the recommendation is that the council will note this amendment to the scheme of delegation. This will mean an update to our constitution, and what I'm proposing is that we will do that on a quarterly basis to ensure that there is proper version control, and that so this will be updated now in March, and a new version will be made available to members who can request a hard copy, and then we'll do the same again in June and September, and we'll draw your attention to that in the director's reports. So
thank you.
Minor update, but just to advise on the process going forward as well.
Okay, so before us for noting, Councillor Irvine.
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Happy to propose noting.
Thank you. And Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll happy to second. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Earl. And we're all agreed, members. 6.4 is our monthly staff matters report, paper G, and again we have it for a while, so I'll just take a proposer and seconder in the absence of any questions or queries. Councillor Bert Wilson.
I propose that we accept this.
Thank you, Bert. And we have Councillor Anne-Marie Donnelly.
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Okay, Alison, can I ask you or invite you to take us through section 7, 7.1 to 7.7 in relation to correspondence, please?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. Chair, the first item is an update from NILGA on the recent meeting of the partnership panel held on the 20th of January. Just for noting, please, Chair.
Can I get a proposer and seconder, please? Councillor Blake.
Proposed there, Chair, for noting. Thanks,
you. Paul. And Councillor Thompson.
Happy to second the noting, Chair.
Councillor Michael Duff.
Yeah, just to congratulate our representative on the partnership panel, Councillor Maguire. I know he works closely with the officers who help him prepare for those meetings, but I think he's making good running there on the point about the rurality of our council area and, you know, the whole inequality, you might say, of DFC style funding being for centres of population above 5,000, but missing out on, you know, significant smaller towns and villages and rural areas. So I would congratulate Councillor Maguire for being heard. I've noticed from reading the minutes of those meetings that not all councillors are heard representing their councils, but he's definitely making his voice heard on our behalf. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. More, Tommy. Councillor Michael Lear.
Well, just given our previous conversation, there's worth noting, I think, on page 4 of the report that the Department of Finance is continuing the 6-month rate holiday, and that the Minister urges the councils to consider this when they're striking their own district rates. I think as well as that, there's a number of matters of concern or interest in there as well. On page 6, it talks about the UK Environment Bill and the impact that that's going to have on councils. Obviously, the protection that we were promised and that we're going to be afforded with Brexit and the changes that they are actually in reality bringing. And indeed, on page 7 there's reference to a decision on the incinerator at Hightown, which I've spoken on before and would be firmly opposed to. I would stand with the community on that one. Very interesting paper, and I suppose we'll get to see what comes of it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Emmett. Councillor Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to actually, I did read the report, and I was very glad to see that Councillor Maguire had raised the issue of water infrastructure, which I know is a common issue, and I just wanted to thank him for doing that, and hopefully we'll be able to advance some further pressure to get investment on this most important issue. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Graham, thank you. 7.2, Alison.
Yeah, Chair, this is from the Livermore Company on behalf of Royal Mail, and it's regarding the proposed relocation of a post box in Lochmacrory, and the details are included. So it's moving to 158 Lochmacrory Road. The photos are provided, Chair.
Thank you. Proposer and second, note that, please. Councillor Kelly, Podgeen.
Yeah, happy to propose this. Whilst the post box has been in the shop, it'll be good to have a physical post box again. So thanks.
Thanks, Podgeen. Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, happy enough to second that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Emmett. And Councillor Clark, Sean.
No, I was going to second it, but it's already been done.
Job done. Thank you, Sean. Okay, 7.3 then, Alison, please.
Thanks, Chair. This is correspondence from Donegal County Council in relation to the Council's previous letter on the temporary road closure at Meanbog.
Thank you. Proposal and seconded note, please. Councillor Swift and Councillor Thompson. Yeah. Councillor Thompson, do you want to speak in it? Okay, thank you.
Second. Yeah.
Grant, thank you. Okay, Councillor Coffey, do you wish to speak in this?
Yeah, this is basically our council put forward some significant concerns in relation to what has been a fairly significant environmental disaster in that area, part of which I understand impacts our council area and waterways in our council area. So I thought that their response was wholly unacceptable. They just basically ignored what we had to say and went ahead anyway. So, you know, it just shows you, I don't know, I don't even know what, maybe Councillor McAleer know better than me what to say on it, but.
Okay, go ahead then, Councillor McAleer. Emmett.
No, thank you, Chair. And I'm surprised that there was nobody taking issue with the fact that the letter says that there was a response received from myself on behalf of the members of Fermanagh and Omagh District Council. Possibly I've been unelected as spokesman and not been informed. What I did do was, in the course of my response, reference the decision taken at the committee meeting of the 9th of December, where I did get unanimous support for my proposal. But absolutely, Councillor O'Coffey is right, and the response there from the Director of Service lists some of the concerns that were raised, but he just seems to say that he's had a look at them and he's not bothered by them. I think it is very concerning. It is very worrying. I don't know what avenues are left to us, because I know this was a decision that was made at the start of January, and due to the procedure at the time, we couldn't advance or send our letter in within the required date. But no, I'm very disappointed with the decision taken and with the correspondence received, Chair. So just to state that much.
That's grand, Emmett. That's noted. Thank you. Grand. Okay, so moving on then, Alison, 7.4 is from Deirdre.
Yes, Chair, this is in response to the Council's request regarding funding for mental health services in rural areas, and we did in our letter recognise that where the responsibilities lay, but just also recognise Deirdre's responsibility in rural provision.
Councillor O'Coffey, Donald. Sorry, Councillor Dayton.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I do welcome this letter from Minister Putz, and I welcome his commitment to working with ministerial colleagues on the executive to look at all aspects of delivery of mental health services. And in his letter, he also recognises the unique requirements of the rural community. And we are all aware of the stress which is currently being experienced by rural dwellers, including farmers, and everything that can be done to support this group of people needs to be done. This letter is in the context of the mental health strategy review, which is currently out for consultation with the closing date towards the end of March. So I welcome this letter, and I do hope that when that review is completed, that we will have significant increase in funding for our mental health services, which has traditionally been regarded as the Cinderella service and has historically been grossly underfunded. So I want to welcome this letter and propose to note, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Josephine. Councillor Swift.
Yeah, Garamagat, and second that, totally concur with all of the points that Josephine has already clearly outlined. It is unfortunate that our departments have to try and take a look at where significant funding can be obtained, but it's investment that is really required to most definitely fully qualify all the services that's needed for mental health in our rural areas. You know, we've talked earlier on today about our open spaces and parks strategy, about bringing all of that fitness out to the rural areas. And similarly with all of the collaboration in mental health has to be the way forward now too. And we did have, you will remember, a lady in speaking to us about, the healthcare system and the two-tier approach, of course, that we have here. And we did speak about an all-Ireland suicide prevention strategy as part of being a sensible way forward as well. Mental health being so serious, and we have witnessed many cases of it in our super council area, not just during the pandemic, but even before that. So we need to ensure that there's significant investment in place and that the policies are there to make sure that suicide prevention is an area of cooperation under any governments, both on both sides of the island. And again, as I've said, it must be fully resourced and comprehensive, because anything else is just piecemeal. It's not good enough for the individual suffering and indeed their families who would be dealing with it as well. So that's just everything that I have to say on that.
Okay, thank you, Bridie. And Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, very briefly, just to concur with the statements of the last two speakers, I think it is unfortunate that while the initial letter from the council was sort of requesting or wishing that possibly Dara could afford some funding into mental health services in the rural areas, the minister says that it's not his department. It is, this idea of the rural impact, rural proof and rural equality is something that I would share with Councillor Green, and it's referenced kind of throughout the letter, and obviously we know more about it than most districts, being such a rural area. The tagline is that it's good to talk, but unfortunately our infrastructure is so bad, be that broadband or mobile phone or indeed public transport, that unfortunately many people are even more isolated than they were prior to the COVID pandemic, that mental health, mental well-being is really a massive issue, and no doubt will be for some time to come on the back of this. And that goes for all age groups, from children who can't go to school to people who aren't going to work or aren't able to meet with family and friends. And I think it is encouraging that there is an executive working group on mental well-being, resilience and suicide prevention, because unfortunately my fear would be that this is going to be an issue that's going to get worse before it's going to get better. So obviously anything that any of the departments at Stormont can do, or we as a council can do to support, I'd be fully in favour of that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Emmett. And Councillor McElduff.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I want to make a proposal that the council organise for us as councillors some training on being a frontline person as a public representative, what our responsibilities are and duties are if contacted by someone who has suicidal ideations, for example. Now, I personally have taken 2 calls this week, which are very, very disconcerting, from people who are feeling very, very low. And, I have to be assured that my initial response, my initial advice that I'm imparting is the correct advice. Now, it's my understanding that in the very first instance, you refer that person to their GP. You make a recommendation that they immediately contact their GP. And what's worrying is people are saying to me, in some cases, I'm in the process, I receive counselling. So it's a very, very difficult experience, I believe, for any person, including a public representative, to receive a call of that nature. And I've definitely received more than one this week. So what I would say is, I think that the council should take this opportunity, maybe till on our social media messaging, remind people, about going to their GP and about Lifeline and Samaritans and other services. And I would like to see perhaps some updated training made available to us as a group of councillors, who are very often the first protocol for people about everything. And we don't have clinical expertise in most cases. Professionally, Dr. Dayton, Councillor Dayton and Anne-Marie Fitzgerald and others might have professional and clinical experience that most of us don't have, but we're treated as a first protocol by very many people who are struggling. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Barry. An excellent proposal. Eamon, Councillor Keenan, go ahead.
Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, excellent proposal by Michael Duff there. Just last year, I actually done a very, very good course, 2-day course. There's two ladies from Belfast who used to work in NHS. They done a mental health lifeguard training. And I'd be happy to second Barry's proposal and maybe to add that I just can't remember the name of the company now, but to propose them, it's actually very good. It might be beneficial to us as councillors.
Thanks, Eamon.
Okay, thank you, Eamon. Okay.
I'll get the name of them, please.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Green, Seamus.
Yeah, I was coming in to second Barry's proposal because I have had that experience too, and again, I am not trained in any way to deal with that, and your fear is that you do the wrong things. It's already been second, so just support that as a brilliant idea.
Thank you, Seamus. Councillor Kelly, Catherine.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I was doing the same, coming in just to support Barry's proposal. In the past couple of weeks, I too, since Christmas, I too have had phone calls from people in the area who are struggling with mental health challenges at the minute, and in particular some young people, which is very troubling. And I think that Barry's proposal also that, you know, that perhaps the council could use their social media to publish some advice, outreach to Samaritans and other relevant bodies. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine. Seamus, your hand's up again there. Are you looking back in again there? If not, Councillor Warrington.
You, Chair. Well, I'm not going to go over all of what's already been said, but just to be very supportive of the proposal, I think we, as councillors, we've all been contacted by individuals out there who've had problems, and I know personally, just thinking of, I can think of 2 young cases who I've been contacted about, and you know, sometimes maybe they mix the spelling of councillors up, but certainly we have been contacted, and a very good proposal by Barry, and full support. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Celine, do you want to come in?
Yes, Chair. If I could just draw members' attention to the work of the elected member development steering group, and there is an option through NILGA which is being developed that we will be able to offer, and it has also been used by other councils for mental health training for councillors and that as well. So this is an issue that was identified by the members of our elected member development working group, and it is something that hopefully there is a solution coming forward for very soon.
Yeah, thank you. And I see Councillor Swift has referenced another good group there just in the chat, and I personally have taken a number of courses in relation to this, and there's different providers all provide a very, very high level of training, which is very important. It is thought-provoking that if you are approached by somebody who's in crisis, you know, it's very, very important that we give them the right direction, and it's an excellent proposal brought forward by Councillor Michael Duff. Okay. 7.5, Alison, I believe, just for noting, really. From
That's correct, Chair. Yes, from NILGA, just their bulletin, please.
Okay, I'll take Councillor Keenan's hand still up. Eamon, happy to propose that?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. And Councillor Blake?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. 7.6 then, Alison?
Chair, this is a virtual conference on alcohol-related brain injury in Ireland by the Leonard Cheshire Foundation to be held on the 25th of March, a virtual conference given the current circumstances. There doesn't appear to be a price for this, Chair, but we can continue to investigate that, but to bring that to members' attention.
Thank you, Alison. Okay, Councillor Dayton.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Chair, I certainly would like to express an interest in participating in that conference. I want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the Leonard Cheshire organisation and all the excellent work that they do to support people with disabilities, not only practically by providing opportunities for supported living and floating support, our OMA floating support unit, community-based services, but also, Chair, to work with other stakeholders to inform policy and also to campaign on issues which are relevant to disabled people, not least of which is disabled access. Our council has a keen interest in this area and do excellent work. The whole issue of alcohol-related brain injury is an important one. It's one that needs to be highlighted, and I certainly would welcome the opportunity of participating, and I would propose that any interested councillor should express an interest. Chair, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Josephine. Councillor Clark, Sean. Go ahead there, Sean. Councillor Warrington.
Thank you, Chair. Well, certainly I would express an interest in participating in that conference if it's obviously if it's free, if Allison come back with a cost. I have worked with the Leonard Cheshire Foundation through the Disability Advisory Group, and they're obviously they're a great amount of people, and certainly I would have an interest in going to that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Victor. Councillor Clark, Sean, are you looking to come in on this item? Can't seem to get Sean there, so move on. Councillor McAleer.
Yeah, Chair, unfortunately I'll not be able to attend it, but I'm happy to second the noting of it. I know Josephine proposed it. I don't think Victor seconded, so I'm happy to second it. And again, having met with the Leonard Cheshire.
Emma, we just lost you there, if you can hear me. Just lost Councillor McAleer. We'll move on, members. Alison, is there a deadline for that, for people to express an interest? Is there, do you know? Or can we just go ahead?
Yeah, Chair, maybe if we could set for our purposes by Friday week, which would be the 19th of February, would just allow us to make the registrations, please.
Okay, so if any member wants to attend, please make themselves known to Democratic Services before Friday week. Okay, all happy? Okay, thank you. And then 7.7, any other correspondence?
Chair, there are two items that have been uploaded. The first is from the Executive Office, and this relates to the Council's letter regarding, this was obviously pre the announcement of the new regulations about the designation of car washes. Now, obviously, circumstances have overtaken us and they were designated as non-essential in the new regulations, Chair. So really just for information.
Just for noting. Okay, can I get a proposer and second to note that, please? I've got Councillor Paul Blake and Councillor Thompson.
Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Thompson, happy to second?
Yeah, happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chair, the second item is from the Department for Communities, and this is in relation to the Council's request about funding for childcare. So the letter sets out the department's support, but does clarify that the responsible department in this matter is the Department of Education. So again, just for noting, Chair.
Just for noting, okay. Councillor Erskine?
Yeah, noted, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. And Councillor Thornton?
Second that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, members. That takes us to the end of correspondence. So we'll just go back and go through matters arising then from January's P&R meeting. 10 pages of minutes there, so I'll just go through page by page. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, page 5. Alison, I think, Nathan, page 5.
Yes, Chair, if I may, it was just really an opportunity to clarify. Members may recall at last night's Regeneration and Community Committee, there was some discussion. It actually came up in the context of vermin control, and a member made a comment erroneously in relation to the information that had been previously presented regarding the streaming of our meetings, and had suggested that the information presented previously was incorrect. And indeed, the costs were overstated. I know the member may wish to clarify their own position, Chair, but I think it's important that we do highlight what the Council had requested was the equipping of the two chambers to allow for the streaming of meetings. This was all requested pre-COVID. The work that has happened in the intervening period, which is allowing our facilitation via YouTube, such as this evening, is on the back of the legislation and the fact that members are all meeting remotely. So the comparison was not an accurate one. And I think it's just important that we clarify the information presented was correct. appropriate and reported through in the detail required. So we're not comparing like with like. That was really all, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that update, Alison. Councillor Coffey, do you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just on this issue, like obviously there's always differences where we are at with things, but I do recall having read the statistics, and I believe that the price at the time was £1,000 an hour, as was stated, I think it was last night. But in any case, I'm wondering whether the original the procurement that we conducted, or the estimation that we brought forward, did that consider the possibility, for example, that cameras might be placed on desks and the system such as Zoom used, basically? Because to me, I can't see why such a system couldn't be deployed even at that stage. I'm just trying to work out in my own mind how it is that we could, how it is that, it can be achieved now. I understand there's legislative change and so on. But really, in a sense, that same system to me, I think would work, that we would have like, if you had a camera in every desk and councillors, as we are doing right now, except we're all in our own little houses and so on. But the same system would work. That's really what I wanted to query. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just invite in Celine there, members.
Chair, members, our IT services have looked at a number of different options in relation to this. One of the simple issues that we have is with everyone operating on this virtual platform. I'm currently in the room with the chair and one other person, socially distanced, and there is a bit of feedback in that. If you put 40 people in the room, it just will not work. We would have to have members in separate rooms, and we just do not have the facilities for that. So whilst you are in your own rooms and in your own homes, that does work. It's a virtual environment. If you want to operate in the chamber environment, in an in-person environment, we have to install hardware. We have to install cameras that will do that recording. Now, again, there are some processes around our democratic processes that are set out in our standing orders and other areas around voting, and also around the information that is provided to the public. We have an audio recording system that we have invested in, and the system that we wanted to get something that was comparable with that. We also have a voting system here in the chamber. We had mastered that for use of votes. So all of these have to be tied in together to the best of our ability to ensure that they do work. They also need to use the hardware that you've already been provided with, the Surface Pros. So those technical issues do provide some constraints. The original costing also included some staff costs to support that as well, and that over a period of time does run up and can be quite costly. So I'm afraid, I suppose, a patched together solution for this was not going to work. It needs to be something that was technically sound to support our meetings and to support the democratic processes and the voting processes of the council. We know what we've been through with virtual and broadband and that. The same thing would apply very much in the chamber environment, but actually probably in a heightened context.
Okay, thanks, Celine. Members, there's been a fairly in-depth clarification given to that there. So very, very briefly, Eamon, Donal and Emmett. Eamon, go ahead. Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to highlight Darien Strabane City Council. They've got a very effective system that they have been using now a number of years.
Okay.
For the live streaming in the council, and I don't think it's overly expensive. I know we'll have to have double the system with Oman and Enniskillen, but I still don't think it's overly expensive.
Okay.
Chair, just for clarification, the pricing and costing that we provided was based on the Darien Strabane model. That is exactly the same technology that we costed and provided. And yes, you are correct. Two chambers meant double the price.
There you are. Okay, Councillor Coffey.
Yeah, it was just on the issue of having to install hardware and so on. There's no hardware being installed. Where I assume most other councillors are operating from their desk pad or whatever it's called, like I am. And there's a little camera in that, and I don't see that why we would need,
Okay.
Why do we need anything else? I don't understand this. I really don't.
Okay, grand. Councillor McAleer, finally.
Thank you, Chair. Just checking that you can hear me all right. Morning. Light on above my speaker.
Yeah, I've got you now. I did lose you there that last item, but I can hear you okay there now.
I think the Surface Pro actually knocked off, so I was cut out just when I was speaking previously. But hopefully you got the gist of it. No, I know this query is in relation to myself. I got an email from the director in question last night, and I noticed just from the content of that apparently I seemingly caused undue distress, and for that I apologise. That was not my intent, and I don't think my intent was to respond to the director directly, I suppose, as opposed to through the meeting. But I would just like to say that my intention, or the reason that I raised that, was that we were discussing, I suppose, an issue that we had requested a feasibility study on and a financial feasibility study on, and we were given sort of an estimated cost or an estimated expense in relation to last night's meeting, whereas we had requested a feasibility study. We wanted to get the actual confirmed spend. The prices quoted did seem, in my mind, exorbitantly high, but I was not questioning the work carried out by the director or the research done on that. As I say, I will respond directly to the director, but I would have had a working relationship with this person for a number of years, so I would appreciate that they would understand the point I'm coming from, and they would not garner any unnecessary distress from that. But I'll definitely address that. I do appreciate some of the comments that Councillors O'Coffey and Keenan have raised, and I suppose that was what I was querying, was why one price was stated and why another. But obviously there may be external or extenuating circumstances surrounding that, so I'm happy to discuss that further with the person in question. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emmett. And just a final comment, I do note that there's been a number of reports brought over the course of recent times in relation to that matter, and I think most of the queries are dealt with in them particular reports. So that brings correspondence to matters arising. We're on. Apologise. We're on page 5 there. So page 6, page 7, 8, 9. Councillor O'Coffey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's on page 8. Sorry to get my hand up in time. It's in relation to the out of hours GP. Obviously we haven't got any responses yet. Firstly, that's unfortunate. I understand. I've been speaking to journalists on this issue, and I'm sure they're equally having difficulty obtaining answers on these issues. But the thing I wanted to really highlight was that my understanding is that there are even nights in the last few week or two where there has been no GP out of hours service anywhere in the whole entire western area. That includes up throughout the district. So it's not just Enniskillen and Omer on the same night. It includes everywhere. So that's an incredible situation to be in. It means that anyone getting ill is really going to be stuck in evenings, and it's unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. And I think we need to press them. I don't know if they don't answer our emails. I don't understand.
Okay, well, just suppose last month we got that correspondence out to them, and I'm sure they're given the present climate that we're at, and not obviously justifying any slow response, but we can all appreciate how busy they are. Councillor Warrington.
Yeah, well, just on that, of course, we'd all love a better out of hours service. But I think, Chair, you would have been involved in the meeting the day that we met with the director.
HSCB.
Yeah, HSCB. And in fairness, they give a fairly robust answer to the problems. And we all know that the biggest part of the problem is they can't fill their slots. It is not a mandatory position for a GP to have to man the out of hours facility, and I think with the lack of GPs, which we have certainly very much in the western area, and we don't need to be told anything with GPs in certainly in Fermanagh and Omagh, it's just difficult to man the facility whenever it's not a mandatory requirement of the GPs. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Victor. Councillor Wilson, right?
Yes, Chair. Well, maybe it's only the farmers that have on call 24 hours a day. Maybe some of them have second jobs and can't be available. But normally they are I've never asked for a GP yet when I didn't get sorted out. Thank you.
Okay, Bert, thank you. Okay, members, I have one item of AOB that's relevant to PNR. Go ahead, Councillor Michael Duff.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I sent you an email earlier today requesting that this be put on the agenda. And, you know, I suppose we have a difficulty in that any urgent relevant business in RNC, for example, a very, very lengthy agenda, you know, it's difficult to get to any other business in that one. This one has a better chance, you know, Chair, and I'm grateful for you, to you for allowing this. It's linked. I want to make a proposal, right? And again, it comes from daily experience of what the people are saying. I would like the council to organise a meeting for the councillors, and it's about the support that is available, support and protections that is available for businesses, local businesses. And in November, the 10th of November, we got a good report, you know, from our officers regarding the range of support that is available. And there's this website, NI Business Info, and it's very helpful. My difficulty is this, and I bet you other councillors can identify with this. I'm talking to people who are falling between the cracks. They are effectively being and feel excluded from the support mechanisms that are there. And again, without giving away any confidential matters, you know, about people's identity. I've spoken to business people this week, and I can see the lifeblood draining from them because of the difficulties they're in. Now, some of these businesses are not required to close, right? And yet there's so little footfall that they are making no profit whatsoever. Their daily income sometimes struggles to get to 10 or 20 pounds in their businesses. So I'm at a loss. So my proposal is that the seminar that we organise for the councillors, for the council, would be with a representative from LPS, who administer the LRSS scheme, the Local Restriction Support Scheme. It would include a Department for Economy representative. It might also include Brian Donaldson, who I don't know personally, but I know he heads up a pressure group called Excluded NI, and it would include our own officers, of course, and it would allow us to get a briefing more extensive on supports and protections that are there, and it would allow us to carry messages to LPS on behalf of businesses that are struggling at this time. And it's awful to see people about to go under and receiving letters back from LPS saying, under the LRSS, you do not qualify. You are unsuccessful in your application. So that's my proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Barry. Councillor Thompson, Errol.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, like Councillor McAduff, I suppose we get many representations to us on these matters, especially, I find, especially as Omagh Town councillors anyway. And I know our council officers under Kim McLaughlin's department has been very, very helpful in that regard. Of the second Councillor McAduff's proposal, he's mentioned a representative for the Department of the Economy, for the economy. Maybe the Department of Finance could be brought on there. I know he's mentioned the LPS as well, but Department of Finance, maybe that could be incorporated into his proposal, and I'd be happy enough to support that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Well, Barry, you could have enough with that.
Very much so. Again, DFP might be included via LPS, but at the same time, if there's another departmental official who can be located who's relevant to this work, I would include that in the proposal. Thanks, Councillor Thompson.
Okay, thank you, members. Grant.
Yes.
Thanks, Earl. Okay, so that takes us to the end of that. We're all agreed, obviously, with that proposal. Part 2, confidential matters. I'll take a proposer and seconder, please, to go into confidential. Councillor Dayton and Councillor Garrity. We'll just pause for a second. Okay, members, that's us up and going again. So if I just invite Alison to come in and summarise what happened in part 2, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to advise that while in confidential business matter, members considered the matters arising from the meeting held on the 20th of January and there were no matters arising, and also considered the report on confidential staff matters and agreed the various recommendations in the report, Chair.
Okay, and the proposer and seconder for that report, Councillor Dayton.
Councillor Dayton.
Thank you. And Councillor Robert Irvine. Okay, members.
Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to a conclusion. Thanks for your cooperation and helping me get through the meeting, and hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks, folks.
Thanks,
Chair.
Stephen.
Morgan.
Stephen.
Long.
Hey, Stevie. Come on, Stevie. Boy.
Well done, Stevie. Well done.
Well done. Happy to be done.
You're white.
Night, night.